The most predictable thing, I think, to come out of the weekend, if you would ask me on a Tuesday last week, would have been, by next Tuesday, we'll probably be talking about how outraged everybody is of the NBA All-Star Game.
Let's complain about the All-Star Game. A tradition unlike any other in February.
88% of that noise is going to come from people who never watch it nor really care about it.
No, which is kind of funny, because for the complaints, you would think everybody watched it based on what my social media feed looked like this weekend. Everybody was glued to it, but the numbers were fine. They weren't great, and that can't be possible.
Well, the NHL had a massive night with their Four Nations game.
They did.
With USA-Canada. They hit over 4.5 million viewers, which is the most they've had since the finals. Did you watch the NBA All-Star Game? I should say.
Games, it's very confusing to follow.
Yeah.
I had it on. It wasn't like I'm going to sit down and watch this entire thing, but there was literally nothing else on television that I could think of on Sunday night. And so, it was on my TV, and one of those, I'd glance over, that team's playing that team now. Okay, that's the score. And then one time I look over, and I'm like, why is Dame shooting threes with a random dude who's now jumping into a bucket of money? That was a little confusing.
That was the Mr. Beast halftime court challenge.
A Mr. Beast thing going on. Then I'd look over, and there'd be a concert happening, and then I'd look back, there's another game on. So I had it on the entire time, but I didn't sit and watch the majority of the event.
I love to give flowers to people when they do something, so I guess I could say this on the front end. Congratulations for having a hit. I don't get the LiAngelo Ball song and why people love it so much. I really just don't. I've heard it live twice. I've heard it on the radio. I don't get it.
I don't understand it.
If it was great, I'd be like, hey, randomly LiAngelo Ball made a great rap song. How about that? I just don't get why people are so enamored with that
It's
song.
having a little bit of a moment right now.
It's more than a moment, buddy.
It's making me feel very old and out of touch.
He performed that at the Lions playoff game.
He did. They have Eminem from their city, and they chose LiAngelo Ball to perform before their playoff game, and then they lost. They deserve that outcome.
But overall, it was a weird format. They play these 3 games with these 4 teams.
Yep.
I found it odd of they took breaks in between all of them instead of just playing them back to back. They played to 40.
I think somebody did the numbers on it. There ended up only being 40 minutes of actual basketball. Because they broke down, just like each game was about 10 minutes it took to get to, because they all did the Elam ending, is that what they call it, right? Where you race to 40 points or whatever. So they timed it. Each game ended up being about 10 minutes.
Well, I have friends that, they love basketball, love the NBA, and they were like, what did you guys think? And I kept coming back to going into it and then afterwards watching it. I just, give me a game with the East and the West, and I didn't mind the jerseys, but I'd rather them wear team uniforms. One team's home, one team's away, and they'll probably start playing in the last 7 minutes of the game like they do almost every year. But last year it was so bad that they basically they felt like they were forced to do this, to make this switch. And I just couldn't really get into it. They had one good game, I thought. The championship game is supposed to be the game that matters the most, and it kind of felt like they just allowed the OG team of Curry and Harden and Durant, even though Durant didn't even play in it. I don't know. I just feel like the championship game, they didn't care. They
Here's Steph, quit. You're playing in the Bay Area. We're going to give you MVP. Let's let your team win.
Yeah. So, their goal, mission is to make it matter, right? To drive up competition. And I didn't really come away feeling like there was a whole lot of it. I felt like the first game there was some of that. And then as it kept going and they allow these 10-minute intervals of time, they got to the title game, and I'm like, feels like that other team didn't really care because that other team's more talented than this old team, but okay.
Yeah, the format was terrible. The NBA is stuck in this vicious circle where you've criticized this rightfully so. They're reacting to a fringe social media vocal minority who criticizes every year that this is the worst thing I've ever seen, and then we all forget about it 48 hours later, and then the next year it's this is the worst thing I've ever seen, and then we forget about it, and then this is the worst thing I've ever seen, right? It's just the same thing happens every year. In the NBA, instead of looking at those people and saying, I don't care what you think. If you want to watch the game, that's great. If you don't, you don't have to. Guess what we just signed? What did they get? $7 billion in their latest TV deal?
76.
It's an
11-year, $76 billion deal.
They're doing just fine. They're going to be okay. We can make fun of the NBA ratings-wise. They just secured their financial future, and they're not going anywhere. And so to react to it and to change the system is they're almost creating this own problem where by redrawing the format every year, it causes a new wave of criticisms to come in instead of just saying, dude, it's the All-Star game. people didn't use like we romanticize this stuff as if back in 1994 we had Pete Rose running over his best friend at home plate and breaking his leg and ending his career, and that's the way the NBA All-Star Game used to be played. I've watched a lot of NBA All-Star games in my day. They've always been high scoring, and there's been very little defense played.
Especially at the beginning
Now,
of the game.
of course, throughout the game, you get one-on-one matchups that mean something. You know, the Jordan-Kobe matchup, everybody will remember that from his first All-Star game. Like, there's little moments where it's like, hey, I want to go up one-on-one with you. Let's see if I can score on you. Let's see if you can stop me. End of the game intensifies a little bit. That's the way the All-Star game's always been. But they bend over, change the format, then that leads to a new wave of criticisms of like, this is the dumbest format I've ever seen. And now they're going to change it again next year, and there'll be a whole new wave of criticisms. Instead of just simply saying this is the All-Star game, take it or leave it. If you don't like it, you don't have to watch. Stop bitching. It's not going to change.
If they, I mean, it doesn't matter. If they want guys to play harder and be more competitive, then solve that issue and get with the players and figure out.
You're not going to solve. They've tried to solve it.
So,
why does it matter to
otherwise-
people that people don't play hard in the All-Star game? This is one of those things that I just don't understand.
It does feel like it's a relatively new complaint from the sports fandom world, sports media world, again, from people who don't even really cover basketball nor really talk or watch much of it. This is a time of the year where football's like at a weird in-between because spring ball's not here and the draft is still a couple months away. So what do we have to be angry about? Kevin Durant, I thought, summed it up really well. Of like, it just for whatever reason, it's people are enjoying being angry more than not being angry.
Yes.
And I don't know.
Like, I'm going to go back, like, just pull up scores. Do
Yeah.
you want to guess the final score of the All-Star game in 1992 when Magic Johnson came back?
112 to 118.
153 to 113. Do you want to guess it the next year? This is Karl Malone, John Stockton, Michael Jordan.
Yeah.
135, 132.
It used
like this
to-
idea that it
yeah.
used to be 90 to 89 Big East basketball.
No,
Like,
it was
what are-
never
it was
that.
always a
But
good.
like, sure, it was more
good game.
competitive at
Once they
moments,
eclipsed
but
the 200 mark.
so that's the limit. We're not willing to. 150's okay, 160's okay, but 200's unacceptable.
You just said the Magic return game in 92, and you said it was 150 to 113.
153 to 113
So
was
that's
the
like
final.
there's no competition in that game. That's just guys free running up and down the court.
You want to
And
go to 1989, back when you used to be able to hand check? It was 143 to 134. So that's enough defense for people.
it's within 7 points, Andrew.
This is the funny. Like, what's the
9
so 50
points,
more
but-
points? So 190 is okay, but 200's not
I mean, look,
okay.
I
look,
think it's more the aesthetic of what's going on out there. And as you mentioned, it would, the first halves, it was, okay, everybody get a chance to do their thing. And then
150 to 113 in 92's aesthetically not telling me there's much of any.
No,
1987, it was 154 to 149.
Yeah, one close
1985, it was 140 to 129. 1984, it was 154 to 145.
game. Close games.
This is what it's always been.
Yeah, it's not.
Guys just didn't shoot as
necessarily-
many threes. That's why you get to 200 now.
Well,
Because in
that's-
1985, guys weren't shooting three-pointers.
I mean, that's also a good counter to your point. It's like, well, it's the aesthetic. It's like, well, you mean the 3-point is the difference, right?
I mean,
So
I'd rather watch a guy make a half-court shot than just uncontested layups the entire
Steph
time.
made one, and then he tried again, and he missed the second one.
Did. You know who was the biggest disappointment for me, to be honest with you? I had one old man crazy take out of the weekend.
Oh, I want to see if it's the same one I had.
Okay, because this whole
I
debate,
mean, I didn't like the format.
the format was stupid.
As a basketball
Totally
fan, I'd prefer them, whatever the final is that your threshold is.
Yeah.
I'd rather just go back to the way it was. Now, we do have a suggestion on the other side that I'm going to play for you.
Okay.
But what's your complaint?
So Draymond goes on this whole rant about G League. Why are these G Leaguer guys involved? And I'm sure we can get to that audio in a second.
I got that
but
audio.
The biggest frustration for me, because I was like, oh, that's right, All-Star Game's on. I flipped on. They were the first game, I think, was the G League versus the Steph. I think the team that ended up winning it. I think that's who they were playing.
It's the young players mixed with the G League players.
Okay, so young guys.
So like
yeah.
Zach Edey.
Yeah, that's right. It
and
was your
McGowan's.
rookie, sophomore winners,
Yeah,
right?
basically, yeah.
So I'm watching that game, and I just thought to myself, if I'm in those shoes, like if that's you're a rookie, sophomore, one, there's no guarantee you're ever going to make an All-Star game. You're only there because it's the rookie, sophomore thing.
Mm-hmm.
I was incredibly disappointed in their lack of effort. Like the rookies just showed up and were like a get along, go along kind of vibe of like, no defense. Like if I were on that team, much easier said than done, sure, because I'm sure there was a talk from like Steph and LeBron before the game of, hey, we play half-ass out here. This is how we do things. I would have been slapping the floor, double teaming guys,
Oh.
full court pressing, just to rattle their kitchen a little bit, wake them up. How great of an all-star start would that have been?
I was actually more angry that LeBron knew he wasn't going to play the whole time and then just refused to back out and give his spot up because he had to hear his name called
He's got to be there
for his 20th All-Star game.
He's got to be in the team photo.
Look, I love LeBron. I can't defend a lot of LeBron's actions. What are we doing? You knew you weren't going to play.
Only the chosen one can get away with that.
That was ridiculous.
Our buddy Eric Gunnarsson hit the nail on the head this
Okay,
weekend
yeah.
with the nostalgia stuff.
Okay.
That's why we hate this.
You bring that over. What are your thoughts? Were you angry? I'm angry. And I want to ask this question because there is some suggestions on how to fix it. One current player on the broadcast complaining about this during one of the breaks between the games. I'm like, ooh, how's that sitting? Why is the NBA, maybe more so than any other league, why is the NBA the sports punching bag? I'm asking sincerely. I want to know, why is that league, and largely that league alone, why is it the sports punching bag for people of just bitch and moan but never watch?